Hey guys, what's going on? In today's video, we are going to be going over a good deck that centers around the newest card released into Marvel Snap, Meek, and he is the 1/1 that gains +1 power for every card you discard this turn, and he will also move to a new location if it is possible. And it is my opinion that Meek is not the strongest card that's been released recently. He's more powerful than Hercules, who was released last week, but Meek sets up very well for the upcoming February season, as there's multiple new powerful discard cards being added to the game. So if you're looking to buy Meek and hold, he's not a bad choice. With at 3,000 collector's tokens and a Series 4, he's a pretty good option to quickly grab, and he's going to have significant value in the upcoming months. He might not be the greatest right now, but he's going to become exponentially more powerful within the next 4 weeks. But with that being said, we're going to run into the deck now, and as always in these deck guides, we're going to be breaking down into the must-haves and the flex cards. And because discard is in a strange spot right now, because the America Chavez nerf really hurt discard for having consistency, there's not as much you can do that's extremely strong consistently. There are many things that you can do to create immense power within these discard archetype decks, but the issues are that it's very obvious what is going on, and sometimes it's very counterable. So, for example, I'm going to have Wong as a flex card in a lot of our discard decks because he just makes Morbius and MODOK and other cards that much more powerful, but Wong is an obvious tell of what's going on, and it takes one Cosmo or something very minimal that can significantly impact you and just make you lose the game. And without further ado, let's get into the discard is Meek deck. And first up in the must-haves, obviously we have Meek. He is a stronger 1-drop immediately because anything that only costs 1 energy and can ramp up power significantly is always going to have immense power in the meta potentially. Now, obviously, Killmonger kills him immediately, even if you're unlucky and you get Electra, which I have a few times, can happen. But he is unpredictable because of the little move aspect. It can help out. Obviously, if you're playing against some of these mobster move decks that are using Kingpin with other negative move locations and move cards, Meek is going to become a hindrance to you most of the time, but he's quite powerful, and you are going to have pretty consistent discard in this deck, so it's not unlikely for your Meek to get up to 7-8 power consistently throughout every game, which a 1/7, that's the same as an Ebony Maw, who obviously has a huge disadvantage with the no cards being able to play it after, so obviously Meek is a pretty strong card. And next up is Blade, and Blade has pretty much been a staple of discard ever since he got buffed into discarding the rightmost card in your hand. He's going to have a consistent discard for you, and in that I mean you know what you're going to be discarding. There's no RNG involved, so if you're lucky enough to have a Swarm or Apocalypse that you just drew, or you're playing Daken and you then play your Blade, you're gonna discard the Muramasa, and you're gonna find pretty good success doing combos like that. So Blade is just one of the stronger discard cards that you can work with, and obviously having these key cards at lower energy make them even more useful, just like how the move archetype is got strong cards like Ghost Spider and Iron Fist at the lower energy selection. And Morbius is a staple of the discard archetype, especially if you're not playing the Black Knight variations, because that is a more targeted singular discard with your Ghost Rider combinations. Morbius obviously gets more powerful the more you're discarding, and the whole point of this deck is to really discard a lot of cards to ramp up your Meek and your Morbius. So if you're playing Meek, you're going to probably be playing Morbius in most of your decks, so he's a definite auto-include. And just like Morbius, Swarm is a kind of an auto-include in decks where you're trying to discard a ton of cards. He can create immense value in the amount of cards you're discarding, because you can just stack up and stack up and stack up the swarms that you're discarding. And if you're in need of filling up your board, you can just spit out 0 cost 3 power cards, which is not a bad deal for you. And I think personally right now, Dokken is pretty much a must-have in most discard archetypes, just because he has the value to ramp up significantly. He adds cards to your hand that you want to discard, and when you're playing the Meek Morbius MODOK Apocalypse style deck, you are trying to discard as many cards as possible, so you are gonna find value with your Dokken getting out there. And if you are playing the Wong, Arnim Zola type list, there's a chance that you're going to get multiple Dokkens or at least multiple shards, so he's going to ramp up into power even more significantly, which can just solo win you lanes with just one card, which is extremely nice. And I like to have Lady Sif in the must-have selection of this deck archetype, just because the targeted consistent discard, most likely she's going to be discarding Apocalypse from your hand. In some cases, you're going to have a dead draw, and she's not going to feel good, but you'd rather have the consistency of the discard, I believe, than having a random discard from like a Moon Knight to really impact your own hand negatively. And Dracula is extremely powerful. He's always been a strong card because his effect happens after the game, so there's not a ton that your opponents are going to be able to do to impact it. He can't get Enchantress. His ability is not ongoing, so he's going to consistently get off his power. And when you're playing Apocalypse in MODOK, that's a great turn 6 play. If you play Drac on turn 4 or 5 and MODOK on turn 6, you're going to empty out your hand and you're going to get the Dracula trigger on your Apocalypse every time. And he can go from a 4-1 to a 4-12 just like that. And MODOK has fallen off in terms of the meta for discard, as he was a card that discards everything in quantity, and the Black Knight discard archetype has taken over, and you just want a few discard for consistencies. But with the addition of Meek, he has found his way back into the meta. Obviously, he's extremely powerful on reveal ability. You can discard 6 cards just like that, which is a ton of boost for your Morbius, a ton of boost for your Meek. It helps significantly on turn 6 in your Apocalypse Dracula plays. If you're playing Meek Morbius decks, you're also going to be including MODOK in most cases, and he's a must include. He's got a good stat line in terms of 5 energy, 8 power. MODOK is a must include in any Meek Morbius decks you are doing. And obviously, Apocalypse used to be one of the more powerful discard cards, and he's going to start finding his way more and more significantly into the meta now. He works extremely well with Dracula, as I was stating before, and he's going to work well with any discard card you're playing, and he should find more consistency in the meta going forward, especially during the February season. And because discard is not as strong as it used to be, there is a lot of opportunity for you to play around within the flex positions in these decks. And that includes from low energy to high energy. There's a lot of different options for you to play around with, and you can kind of find what you think is more stylistically in your gameplay or what you like to play. And starting from the lowest energy card, we'll go with X23. I'd been playing around with X23. It's probably a low option in terms of your flex cards of putting into the deck. It's nice to get that one trigger off for getting the extra energy so you can get out surprise Arnim Zolas or other combos that you are trying to sneak out, but there's not a ton of consistency, and then you just have a 1 energy 2 drop, 2 power that is not really great and ends up just taking up a spot on your board. So I don't have great words for X23 in Destroy decks, but she is an option if you're looking to have a little bit of ramp hidden in your deck. And I like to play Wolverine, but he has fallen off in my opinion in terms of his value. He's great. It's great to have a good card to be discarded in your hand, and he is a good card to discard. Obviously, he'll go out and be a 2/4 on your board, but if you draw him late, he feels bad. He consistently is going to go. If you have a location with 3 cards, you're going to just end up having your Wolverine fly into there, and then you're going to be SOL. So his consistency is not great. He's not bad if you don't have a ton of options. Obviously, earlier game, if you are playing Colleen Wing and other cards he works pretty well, but I would sway more towards just having Swarm and trying to stack your Swarm discards versus trying to make Wolverine work, unless you're playing some kind of destroy discard hybrid deck. And as I was saying earlier, having a consistent known discard is very nice to have, and that's what Colleen Wing is. She's a great stat line out of 2/4, and if you're playing cards like Wolverine, X-23, Swarm, you know who she's going to discard, and there's going to be significant value in there. So I wouldn't necessarily say she's a must include, just because sometimes you want to do bigger and better things, and really a lot of the times only the lowest power cards in your hand you want to discard are your Swarm. So she's pretty strong, but not the best. And now we're going to get into the more fun flex cards, in my opinion, and that starts off with Wong. And Wong is obviously a strong card for the discard archetype because he creates the ability to have your discard effects trigger twice. And when you have cards like Mobius and Meek, who really can ramp up significantly based on the amount of cards you're discarding, Wong becomes incredibly powerful. Only issues I have with Wong is that he is a little harder. He gets out into the game slower in this deck because you're not really playing a ton of ramp, so he's going to be out on turn 4, and there's a chance you're not having priority, so your opponent's going to be likely have an opportunity to counter your Wong, and you're going to find you're going to shoot yourself in the foot sometimes by being obvious with your Wong gameplay. And when he works extremely well, and you're going to win games, and you're going to get crazy powerful cards. But he is an obvious play sometimes, and your opponent is going to be able to counter it, especially if discard is heavy in the meta, because people are going to want to counter the Wong gameplay. So expect to see a lot of Cosmos out there. And finally, I have Arnim Zola in here as a flex card. I think he's pretty valuable when you're going to use him. He's kind of a card that you're probably not going to use every game, maybe not even every 1 in 5 games, but his value is incredible if you're going to ever get a chance and an opportunity to use him. Say you're not drawing your MODOK, your Apocalypse, there's a chance for you to potentially Arnim Zola on turn 6 and duplicate, and all of a sudden you have 2 Morbius, which could have incredible value. Or you could have 2 Dawkins, and then you discard the shards, and all of a sudden you have 2 32 powered Dawkins on your board. So there is incredible value within Arnim Zola when he gets played, and I think he adds a bit of unexpected confusion that your opponent's not going to be ready for, and he will steal you cubes and help you win games situationally. So guys, that is a breakdown of the new Meek discard decks that are out there. Let me know what you think in terms of the success rate you're seeing out there in discard. Personally, I think it's not going to be that strong in the meta until we get halfway through the February season next month. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video and you're missing the gameplay, let me know. I can upload some. I'm trying to make the videos a little shorter to make sure everybody wants to watch and just get the deck content that they're looking for. And as always, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.